It was exciting. You know, when I think about the 70s, it's hard to describe to people unless they were there what it was like. During the 70s, if there was a problem that you had, you could place 1 or 2 phone calls and tell them to show up at wherever it is, and usually it was in a place that we were. You know, because we always had access to halls. And on 17th and Jefferson, that was our office, and it was an old Catholic school that was Japanese, basically, and it's torn down now. And so we could place a call in the morning, and in the evening, we'd have 200 or 300 people there, mostly young. I mean, because everybody wanted to do something. So there's all this high energy.
Yeah, very spirited.
Very, high energy
very
people.
Committed,
and those, there are people like Bob Santos, Fred, the people who could speak. There was a charism that had to be there. I mean, people would speak and get the crowd following them. The young people were really so eager. We did a lot of different things. I mean, I remember once I got a call because they were having a national conference of social workers.
Social services.
It was social service. Not only that, it was human rights or something like that. They were coming to Seattle at the old Olympic Hotel to meet. And they said, can you provide the folk dancers? And I said, what are they dealing with? And they were dealing with issues. And I said, what are they discussing at their things? It was on civil rights or something. And they said, well, they're going to discuss it. And I said, have they discussed this? And they said, no. And then I thought about it. And then another group, which did nothing but civil rights, called me up and they said, don't let your kids dance. And then I thought about it more, and I said, no, we'll let our kids dance, but we'll have a different...
That was the Asians that said that, right?
No, it was a Filipino who called me up.
Oh.
It was, what's his name, the minister. But it was an Asian group. Well, anyway, so what we did is we had a podium at the Olympic Hotel, a national podium, and they wanted the Filipinos to come and dance, and I said, yeah, it's typical. They always think that we're good for dancing and feeding them. And so what we did, I said, okay. So we sent the call out, and it was all college kids, and they showed up at our old office at Seattle U's campus, and Fred handed out bamboo poles, gongs, and everything else. We had our folk dancers, and the understanding was, I said, how much time will you give us? They said, around 10 or 15 minutes. I said, okay. So our dancers were instructed to just dance for 3 minutes to do the tinikling. And then after they danced their short tinikling, Fred went up to the stage, the edge of the stage, and talked to these people who came from all over the country, telling them about all the social issues, the problems that are facing Asian Americans. And people still come up to me, and I don't remember, it must have been close to 100 young people, and they'll come up to me and say, do you remember when we did that? And I said, yeah, it was really exciting. We all showed up with our bamboo poles, and they weren't going to march or anything. They're not drill team kids or play the gongs or a drum or anything. But we stood masked on the stage as a visible reminder to these people who were supposed to be working on issues that faced us or the new immigrants coming in and didn't have a clue, because we're talking around 1972, 73, when it was all hypothetical. And then Fred was busy telling them what it was that they really should be paying attention to. And I'll never forget, everybody stopped eating because it was during their meal, except this one guy in the front, and he was so pissed off, he would clank his spoon down, his fork down there, cut his meat with a vengeance and clank it down there. And it was even better, because it showed people, in his peers, that here was a guy who was supposed to be tending to problems like that and was completely dismissing them. And made our point. Needless to say, we never got invited again to do a presentation.